This is Parashat Mitzorah, and it's a week before Pesach, and a week and a half or so before Pesach. And my goal is to bring us all to the Seder, happy, content, shining, with our hearts open wide. I want to come to the Seder glowing. I want to bring my light to everyone sitting at the Seder. That's my goal for us. This, let me just mute everyone also. Sorry, that's my goal for us. This this Pesach. Hold on. Oh, here it is. Mute. Okay, anyone that wants to talk, just good. Just unmute yourself. But meanwhile, I just muted everyone because I was hearing noises from everyone. Wonderful. So the first thing I want to talk about is an avodah that I did with a friend of mine. And this avodah has repercussions to all of us. And as I go through the avodah I did with her, we're going to also internalize it into our lives. And before I tell you the avodah that I did with her, I want to bring up a pasuk that is the most important pasuk when we say our tefillah, when we say ashrei. You know, there's a Tehillim. There's a Tehillim perek that is in middle of our tefillah, actually. And it's called Ashrei Yoshvei Betecha, and it delineates everything that Hashem does for us. And there's one specific pasuk over there where the rabbis tell us that in this pasuk we need to concentrate as much as we can, and to be very focused on that pasuk. And actually, actually, some people even open up their arms when they say, they actually do like a physical action as they say the pasuk, and the pasuk is Poteach et yadecha umasbia lechol chai ratzon. It means that Hashem opens up his hands and he sustains us. Masbia, he makes us full, he fills us, and they're talking about you could talk about spiritual sustenance, or you could talk about physical sustenance, right? He gives us parnasa. Umasbia lechol chai, every living being's ratzon. And it's exactly the kind of avodah that we're trying to do, which is trying to figure out what our ratzon is. Hashem is telling us that other than the sustenance that he gives us, hi Ralph, the car is downstairs and I put it into the parking lot. Okay, bye. Thank you. Other than the sustenance that he gives us, he also sustains us with the retzonot that course through us, that come through us. And that is how he keeps his part of his being in us alive. The part of us that he keeps alive is our ratzon, and it's something that we need to also pray to Hashem and say, please sustain us, for us to be able to understand and see and know our ratzon and bring it into fruition, right? So we need to go through our lives, and we need and meet every single day that we have as a knowledge that Hashem is trying to do good for us. And when we see things in our lives that don't exactly mesh with what we think the good life is, it's a chance for us to be able to look at those things in a different light, right? So the friend that I was working with was saying that she started to work on her ratzon, and it was something that I've told us and we've been talking about, is before you do anything, you say, I want, ani rotza, I want to get out of bed. I want to make myself breakfast. I want to pray. And she came to a point where she needed to go to the dentist, and there was a lot of work that needed to get done. And she said that was one point that I couldn't say that I really want to go to the dentist. And she was going back and forth, and she said, but I didn't want to go to the dentist unless I could say, this is my ratzon. My ratzon is to go to the dentist. And she asked me, how could I bring myself to want it, right? because she feels like there's a blockage over there. It's a point where, now, why is it very important to say, I want to have 20 people at my Seder. I want to be able to say yes to every person that asks me to come to my Seder. I want to say yes, even though my house only holds 20 people and 30 are going to ask. I want to be able to say yes. That is my ratzon. I want to scrub my countertops now. Before we do anything, why is it very important to say I want? The goal of saying I want is that we will never say about something that I want if I really don't want it, which is why she wasn't able to say, I want to go to the dentist. Another reason is that I realize that most of the things that I do in my life, I really want to do it, and that I do have a choice. And sometimes when I tell myself I don't have a choice, they're really stories I'm telling myself. They're stories that I'm telling myself because really, I do want to do most of the things. And the second thing, why is it important to say I want? Because we're never going to be able to say about things that I don't want, that it's my ratzon. I'm constantly going down and figuring out my ratzon. In Hebrew, there's a word for it. It's called berur. Lasot berur is to investigate. I am constantly investigating my ratzon. And why is it very important for me to constantly investigate my ratzon? The constant investigation brings me closer to the person Hashem created me, to the part of God that's in me. And I become closer to God. I become closer to the part that He instilled in me, that's Him, right? I have like a small piece of God within me, and I become closer to Him. So God is constantly going to throw things at me where I'm going to have to do this investigation. So throughout the day, as we go through our days, we say, this is what I want. So the avodah that I did with her is, I said, the word dentist is a very big mountain. It's a huge mountain to climb. It's huge. It's like when we show a child a messy room, a room that he messed, and we tell them, like, clean up this messy room. We can't tell a child to do that, just like we can't tell a child, go climb the Everest. This is like very, very big words, like dentist, like clean, and we need to break it down. Okay. So what was happening to her? The dentist wants to see her, or she wanted to go see the dentist, and she has been pushing it off. And she said, there's massive amounts of work to do on my teeth. It's a very large order. And what I wanted to do with her is break it down into small bite-sized pieces. Now, this idea of breaking things into small bite-sized pieces is essential and critical to our existence in this world, for this world to be a Gan Eden for us. Sometimes, like, I'm having a Seder and I'm having 25 people, and it just seems like a very, very big mountain to climb. However, when I start taking the Seder and breaking it down into smaller pieces, I'm able to go from one thing to another and say my ratzon and be able to do each thing in a very happy way. But when I'm faced with, like, also, this is something that we're doing next week, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. We're all going to Eilat, our whole family. My daughter-in-law Adele, her greatest wish is to swim with the dolphins. And we said, you know what, if we all finish Pesach a week before, we could take those 3 days and go to Eilat and have Adele and all of us swim with the dolphins. And, her ratzon is our, her wish is our command. So actually my Pesach is almost finished, and I already did the shopping, and the kitchen was kosher today, and we all want to go. However, at the beginning, when I was thinking, oh, we're going to go down to Eilat 3 days next week, and then I'm going to come back, and what am I going to have to do, and whatever, I was only able to do it because I was able to break down that whole activity into bite-sized pieces. So every single thing that comes into our life that causes us stress, one of the tools to deal with it is to just say, what's the smallest thing I want to do in order to make it happen, and start with that, and then see what is the next step I can do, and the next step I could do. So I asked her, would calling the dentist be, is that something you'd want to do? Or is that too big of a chore? Is that too scary? She said, you know what, calling the dentist, I can. Great. Now, how about the next step is to step into the car and go to the dentist? Is there anything scary about that? So she said, yeah, it's very scary. Why is it scary? I asked. And she said, because I don't know, I know what's going to happen over there. There's like a lot of drilling, a lot of, extracting, a lot of holes. I said, I didn't ask you about what was going to happen by the dentist, just the action of going in the car. You do that all the time. You take your kids to carpool, you go to the supermarket, you go visit your children. So the action of stepping in your car and driving is not a scary action. But what stops us, what makes her scared? The whole imagination part, the whole dimyonot of how's it going to be and what's going to happen, and movies in my head, and movies that run through my head. Nothing happened yet, but I'm scared. I'm paralyzed. I don't know, how I'm going to even make the drive over there. So one of the avodot, there's a very important avodah that I want to now bring into our terms, and it's called to be able to concentrate. Sorry, guys. Sorry, the phone just rang. Okay, it's called to be able to concentrate, and this is going to be the avodah of our Pesach preparations. What does it mean to concentrate? And there's another word for it, also to be mindful, and we spoke about it, but we're going to try to delve a little bit deeper into what it means to be centered, to concentrate on our action, to be able to be mindful. Okay. I want to, when at any kind of action that we do, when we have any kind of projects coming up, we have like goals, et cetera, et cetera. For her, it was going to the dentist. For us now, it's making the Seder. I know that after this summer, I
can't hear Michal, but I'm not sure if it's just me.
It's not just you, Val. It's not just you.
Hi, guys. Do you hear me? Okay. I think you do. I'm sorry. When I have a phone call, it just knocks this out. I'm going to... Maybe next time I'm going to try to do it from my computer, though. You never heard well from my computer. Okay. So, so we have all these, I was saying, God willing, at the end of the summer, anyone that wants to hike the Alps with me is welcome to do it. And when I talk about climbing the Alps or anything, it's something that I break down into small parts as I make my journey towards it. Because the stress that we feel, as Jane was saying, that stress is totally in our heads. And how do we allow that stress to leave our heads? Okay. In reality, our body could usually do one thing at a time, right? I cannot do two things with my body. Now, I see myself, let's say, doing dishes in the sink, and my mind is thinking about how am I going to manage to do my shopping and the Seder and the camping, and what are we going to do, and when am I going to drive, et cetera, et cetera. And the truth is, I'm totally losing touch of what's happening in my body, and my mind is racing, and I'm not present in the activity that I'm doing. And the fact, and the only fact in my life that I have now in front of me is the action that I'm doing now. Example, I'm doing the dishes now. And so what is that stress like? That stress is like when I want to, let's say, go with my whole family for the Seder, and I take my youngest child's small backpack and I try to pack everything for the Seder into this small backpack. It's like a very small bag with so many things and as I'm stuffing it in, there's a lot of pressure on the bag for everything to be crammed in. And it's like I'm trying, and the bag is busting, which is what happens with us when we are being stressed out. It's because in our minds we're cramming and cramming the things that we need to do, right? And some of it is more than I'm capable of, and it creates the stress, and that creates the pressure, just like the pressure that goes in the backpack that I am packing, a week's worth of clothing in my small child's bag. That's what happens in our heads. It's like we want to put a big pot of hamid in a small bowl, and everything is going to overflow. And it's like, it's a pressure, and things just run over. Now, the demionot, all the imaginations that we have in the movies that we create in our heads of what is going to be, is basically taking us out of the action that I'm doing, and my head is in one place and my body is in a different place. And what I call that, when my head and my body are not in the same action, they're not in the same wavelength, my head and my body are not synchronized, I call that not being alive, because my head is disconnected from my action. And when I'm able to concentrate on what I'm doing presently, what I'm doing currently, my head and my body are doing the same action, they're on the same wavelength, that is what I call aliveness. So death, like having our heads severed from our bodies, is we can't live that way. And that is what creates the stress and pressures that make us sick. However, when I allow my head and my body to be synchronized in the same place in one time, that is the ultimate aliveness. And we want to reach a level, and reaching a place, right, where my body and my head are in the same place, on the same wavelength, and that is considered very high functioning. Okay, that is a place not of high functioning, because high functioning is like, we could do the dishes and, tell everyone what else to do. And I could split my body and my mind, and a lot of things is going to happen around me. And that's high functioning. But I want to live in a place of high aliveness. I could do all the dishes and the Pesach, all my thoughts are the Seder and what's going to be and how's it going to go and what's going to happen, what I still have to make, what I still have to buy, blah, blah, blah. I call that functioning. But what I want to feel is aliveness, the whole of me in one place, in one action, right? When so how do we do that? When we do any kind of action, and I'll give an example of doing the dishes. I guess you're realizing that I do a lot of dishes. I do. And every single fork that I soap in my hands, I relish the feeling of it, the soap bubbles, the water rushing through it. I focus on what I am doing now. Like at this, let's say now I'm talking to you, I'm focusing on the fact that I want to give over this Torah. I'm concentrated on the people that are listening to it. I'm trying to pass the ideas as best as I can, right? And I don't want to, while I'm teaching, I don't want to have other things going through my head, like, oh, after this class, I'm giving another class, and then what do I have to do tomorrow, etc. Because that is not being alive. That is separating my mind and my body. I'm now here, I'm teaching the class, I'm focused on it, this is where I am. I am cutting the dates for the charoset. My head is in the dates. I don't want to split my mind from my body. I watch the dates, I look at it, I think about, where they grew and how, plentiful is Israel that that we're able to eat the dates that the country brought forth. And like driving in my car, as I drive, I could look around and see like the roads that we never had before in Israel. And And what it brings me is to a level of awareness and appreciation that we don't have when our body is on automatic and our mind is like racing through other things that we need to do or we didn't do or we still have to do. So I want to be able to have us present in the moment, and that will cause aliveness in us. Okay, so okay, now there's something that is really interesting that's said about Hashem. There's a tefillah that we say about Hashem. We call God is memit and mechayeh. God God has people, like he brings into the world death and he brings into the world aliveness. He's the one that is in charge of death and he's the one that is in charge of aliveness. Now, why do we first say that Hashem is in charge of death and then aliveness, when actually first aliveness comes into the world and then death? Because we think that we control the world and we can do many things together. And at a certain point, we'll find that we're functioning, but we're not living. And to come to this aliveness, right? To come to this aliveness, we need to focus on only the one thing that I'm doing and to relinquish all other thoughts and things that are around me. And I could only be happy, I could only be here and now when I am happy with my chelek. There's always, chelek is a part. I'm always doing one part, right? And like, as I said, washing the fork, right? So I could also say, like, what's the big deal? All the time that I have in the world, I want to really spend it washing this fork. But this is what it means to know that this is my chelek now, my chelek in my life now, and I am happy in my lot. I'm happy in my chelek, and to relinquish everything else around me, and it means that my happiness will not hinge on the fact that my house is clean or not clean. Did I cook or not cook? Are things going my way or they're not going my way, right? Because I'm relinquishing control. I'm deciding to be happy with the chelek that I'm doing, to focus on the chelek that I'm doing, because I want to know that whether something happens or doesn't happen in my life, I'm happy regardless. I'm happy regardless, because my happiness is not going to be dependent on things that are external to me. My happiness is going to depend on things that are internal to me, right? So, hold on 1 minute. Oh, my phone keeps on falling. Sorry, guys. Okay, so why does it say that God first makes things die and then makes things come alive? Because the only way we can make ourselves come alive is to be able, and for us, it's like a death. It's like a death, to relinquish control and give Hashem that control. So for us, it's like relinquishing control. Some people think that it's what dying is all about. That is actually what dying is all about. We are totally and utterly relinquishing control of our life, and we're giving our neshama back to Hashem. So we want to create that. We want to give it up to Hashem at all times. And we want to focus just on the chelek that we have in front of us and be in it and be very mindful in it and know that this chelek that we have right now, all of life is concentrated in this chelek. In other words, like, we could define ourselves, let's say, as a mother. And a mother, what we have in the drawer of a mother is, let's say, is listening, or is in a grandmother drawer, also listening. So when I sit down and listen to my grandson and read him a book, I am totally there, and my mind is nowhere else but with my grandson. So on the one hand, we might think we relinquish control of everything, and I'm only here. So everyone is dead to me around. Only this person is what I have in front of me, and he is alive for me. And when I do that, there's an aliveness that arises in me, because because my mind and my body are one. We're connected, right? There's no death over there. So now, okay, so now I want to go back to my friend who was, in the
Michal?
dental. Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, when you relinquish control, it's also trusting that Hashem will take care of everything else. Like if I'm focused on one thing, the rest is going to be taken care of. Like it's not going to not happen because I'm not there doing it. It's like you can let go because you trust in Hashem is there, and you know Hashem's going to take care of it, and you relinquish, but that's what allows you to stay in your lane that you're choosing, what, in terms of your ratzon. So
Yes.
for example, yesterday I wanted to spend time with my grandchildren, and I told my daughter, drop them off. And, I was cleaning and I was doing, and I was, Passover and my work and so many things. And then I just said, I'm dropping everything. Hashem will take care of whatever needs to get done. It will all get done. And played with my grandchildren, sat on the floor with them and played with them. And it's the trust that I have that everything else will be taken care of. That's my relinquish. So it's not just, that I'm choosing to be present. It's that I have such a good backup, it's not me that has to be in control.
Right. You have a father that is there to back you up. True. Very, very true. Thank you. I want to also give an example that Michal Peretz gave. Let's see if this is going to be better. This is better. I have an example that Michal Peretz gave. Her son, this past weekend, her youngest son, who's 18 years old, it was his birthday. And he asked her, I want to invite 15 of my friends for Shabbat. Do you mind? And she said, our house is always open to anyone that wants to come. I totally don't mind. I want to tell you that for this Shabbat, I am willing to make the chalot, and I'm willing to buy all the ingredients that you need for anything that you might want to make. And I'm willing to give my kitchen, and the rest is yours, right? The rest is yours. Now, the greatness of this is that she was able to relinquish it all and trust that they're going to know what to do and how they're going to do it. And she wasn't going to follow up after them. Did you clean the kitchen? And did you do the floors? And did you do the dishes? And did you set the table? Right. And she said she felt at the end like she was almost invisible. And there's someone that's an invisible person is someone that no one sees, but they see everyone. She says, I was invisible and I didn't even see anything. It was a relinquishing of really putting it in their hands and trusting that whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And whatever's going to happen is going to be good. And whatever's going to happen, it's because that's what was meant to happen. And it was a very wonderful Shabbat for her. She said, the only thing I did is on Seudah Shalishit, I gave my son blessings for his birthday and spoke about him. And they all really, because she had that faith that everything was going to end up working out, they really rose to the occasion. And because she was really able to stay out of it, they rose to the occasion. And that is something that's very hard to do for people who are, the control controls their life. Wanting to be in control controls their life. And I also realized something very interesting. Like I live in a building that has 60 families. And my daughter Malka wants to come to me for the Seder. And I don't have room for her in the house, but we have room around the table. And I'm trying to find if anyone is leaving, if they could leave their apartment for Malka to sleep in. And I realized that people, it's something that I didn't grow up with, but I'm realizing that it is something that people here contend with. They feel like it's our house and we want to be in control of how it looks and how it is and how everything is going to be in it, and it's going to be neat and clean, and they don't know how they're going to get it back. And it's someone going into their own private, and they just want to have, they feel like the house is almost like them, and they want to have control over it, and they can't relinquish it. They cannot really, out of 60 families, there's not one family that is willing to relinquish. Now it's totally an avodah of, if they had it in their heads that Hashem gave them their house and it's a place for them of refuge, it's their safety, it's their haven. However, when they're not there, it could serve other people as a safety, as a haven, as a place to be. And if they know that Hashem is the one that gave it to them, it's just passing through them. And no one is able to have that outlook. And I guess the only reason I'm able to have it is because of the house I grew up in, and also because of the settlement that I lived in, where anyone that went for Shabbat always wrote on the WhatsApp, I'm going to be away for Shabbat. Anyone that needs to use my house, please use my house. That's the place that I came from. And all of a sudden I realized that this issue of control, of wanting to control on, what's going to be with my house and how's it going to look and what's going to happen, and, how should I give it? And it's a whole issue that paralyzes people from allowing God's abundance to flow through them. And I'm sure that there are places in my life that I also have issues of control that I cannot allow and relinquish, which is an avodah that I'm doing. Now, why is this avodah very much for Pesach, this issue of control? When we look at Pharaoh and we see what was the theme of Pharaoh, Pharaoh's theme wasn't that he wanted money or power. Pharaoh wanted control. And Pharaoh got to the lowest level of any human individual that can be reached, because he wanted to control another nation and have them under him, and he wasn't willing to see that there's a Hashem there. Now, what was the low level that Pharaoh reached? The low level that he reached was that when finally he was, there was Makat Bechorot, and he said, okay, I'm letting them go. He started to run after them in order to bring them back. So he freed the people, and then he was gonna, he relinquished control. There was a relinquishing of that control. And it was so hard for him that he started running after the Jewish people in order to enslave them again, which is why in the Torah there is a isur, there's something that you're not allowed to do, and that is when you see a slave that ran away from his master, you're not allowed to bring him back to the master. Once someone was freed, once we will free ourselves from this control, we will pray as hard as we can and do our avodah as much as we can to be able to maintain that freedom and not be like Pharaoh that ran after in order to try to regain that control again. Which is why at that point, Moshe literally kills him. Moshe takes his mateh, takes his stick, and hits the water, and Egypt is how do you say? They all disappear into the waters. They had no right to exist anymore because they were trying to they were trying to not allow the freedom that they had given the Jews. They were not going to allow it to flourish. They were going to enslave them again. And people that are willing to do that want to bring the control back, they're not allowed to live. They don't have a right to live, which is why Moshe, who was very, very sensitive and acted towards Pharaoh with a lot of respect throughout the parashot, as we're reading Shmot, Va'era, and Bo, because the truth is Moshe and Pharaoh were probably brothers. They grew up as brothers. They were stepbrothers. I mean, Moshe was raised by Pharaoh's sister, most probably, or by Pharaoh's daughter. It must be his sister though. And they grew up together, and he was very respectful towards Pharaoh. And Moshe's sensitivity also comes out in the place where Hashem tells him to hit the Ye'or, and Moshe says Aaron is going to hit the Ye'or, and our rabbis say, why isn't Moshe hitting the Ye'or? The rabbi said because the Ye'or was the place where he was hidden and saved, and it was the source of his salvation. So he had such a high level of moral gratitude that he refused to hit it, and Aharon needed to do that makah. And with all that, Moshe realized, and Hashem told him, that when Pharaoh is wanting to take back the freedom that he gave, he didn't deserve life anymore, which is why Moshe at that point hit the sea of reeds, and the water just came, and Mitzraim was gone. They were gone. So we want to release ourselves from that control that almost grabs us by the throat. And we want to come into the Seder as freed individuals. And let's see how we're going to do that. Okay. Okay, I just want to finish with the dentist though, before. Oh, okay. I asked her also, at this point she was able to go into the car and get to the dentist. And then she said, what she was scared is that the dentist is going to see and look in her mouth and be very critical of what's happening in her mouth. So I told her, I want you to be able to look at what's happening in the dentist, that every person that comes to check you and give their opinion, they're coming because they're wanting to give you your expertise. I said before, like we said last class, that every person that comes across from me either comes to take, I could look at every person around me as someone that's coming to take from me my time, my energy, my money, or that any person that I'm in contact with is coming to add to me. Even a person that triggers me is a person that is coming to add to me, right? He's coming to add more self-awareness, self-knowledge. He's coming to add to me of where's the next step I need to, grow to. 1 second. Let me just. Okay. I just muted someone who was opened. Very good. So I wanted her to see, instead of, the dentists are going to now drill and expose and open. I wanted her to see everyone that she comes into contact with as someone who's coming to add to the comfort of her mouth, to the health of her teeth, to all positive kind of thoughts about anyone that has contact with her mouth. And she's going to visit the dentist, right? I wanted her to say, you're going for a visit. And breaking it down into small pieces means the first time that you go, you can have the dentist look at you for 15 minutes. The second time that you go, he could look at you for another 15 minutes. And break it down into pieces that are palatable, that we could digest it, that is adin for us. Adin is to do it in a gentle way. We need to be able to treat ourselves in a gentle way, to shine a light into me, realize that I'm responsible for my own good, and be able to do that for myself, right? That breaking down into little pieces. What am I capable of? What am I going to do happily? What is my ratzon? Because I am the only person that could do good for myself. So one of the things that I want to do good for myself, and I want to do that this Seder, is I want to ask myself before the Seder, what is important for me to do? Now, I want us all to come to the Seder. I know as women, we end up dealing with a lot of, how do you say, with a lot of bureaucracy for the Seder. There's, getting everything on the table and having, and making all the food and shopping for everything and making sure everyone has a spot and making sure everyone is heard, et cetera, et cetera. And we're involved with the bureaucracy and the logistics. And for me, it's very important. And I want each and every one of you to also be able to say to herself, other than all the practicalities and the logistics, I want to be able to take something, a small chapter from the Haggadah, something spiritual that I want to bring of myself to the table. And I want to be able to have a light shine on it at the Seder, right? But it means that before the Seder, just like we prepare for the Seder for days and days, it means that we take time and prepare from the Haggadah something that is going to shine our light to the Seder. Because part of our light shining is all the food and preparations and logistics. And part of our light that is shining is a spiritual light also, that I want us all to do. So I want every day for each and every one of us to be able to ask ourselves, what place in the house do I want to clean now that will make my day, that will make me happy? What is my ratzon to clean? And go and do it. And it could be a very small place. It doesn't have to be, the whole closet. Just, I would like to do this drawer. So this requires self-knowledge of myself, which is when we say the prayer of poteach et yadecha en ashrei umasbia lechol haratzon, you open up your hands and you sustain me with my ratzon, right? With me allowing myself to know the ratzon, we ask Hashem to help us with that. But once we have that ratzon, we need to bring it out into the light, because when we bring it out into the light, that's what's gonna do good for me. So part of what will make it happen for me is a search within me, paying attention to me. Just like before I was saying, when we are doing any kind of action, we are focused and pay attention to that action, and we don't sever our head from the action we're doing. That is what I want to do within me, to pay attention to my ritzonot, to pay attention to what I want, what I like, what I want to clean, what I would like to bring to the table in terms of spirituality. So we're gaining a lot of self-knowledge. Okay, on Pesach, we became a nation, and we were chosen to go out of Egypt and become the chosen, we became the chosen nation. And they say that the going out of Mitzraim is actually the spring of the world. It is the spring of the world. And it's because we are able to reflect to humanity certain kind of moral levels of functioning in this world. So as I said before, Moshe Rabbeinu lifts us to a very high moral level. The moral level that Moshe Rabbeinu lifted us up to is the fact that he was able to have gratitude to inanimate objects like the Nile, not willing to hit it, right? And in that way, I want to treat all, I'm not even saying the people around me, because that goes without saying, and that's the avodah that we're doing. But when we do order in the house, and when we do cleaning in the house, and when we take out everything that we don't need and leave what we do need, it's exactly what Moshe did when he treated the Nile with dignity. Because when we're creating order, we are appreciating and realizing that what we have is, we need to go through a process of berur, of how did I say the word berur before? We're going through a process of investigation. Thank you. We're going through the process of an investigation of, do I really need this? Do I really want this? Does this object reflect me? Does it reflect who I am now? And if it is, we leave it. And that is a kavod that we're giving the object. And if it's not, then we're moving it away, and it's something that doesn't have to be in our life right now. And we're giving the object the kavod when we, move it out of our living area. because it's something that doesn't reflect who I am any longer. So the type of gratitude that Moshe had towards the Nile is the kind of gratitude that we need to bring the inanimate to all the inanimate objects in our home, which we're busy cleaning and doing and sorting and separating and realizing, what are we going to leave and what are we going to relinquish. And part of the control also, as Joyce said, when something is not who we are now and doesn't reflect us and we don't need it, but we still have a very hard time relinquishing it, it's also a matter of relinquishing a control that will say, if ever we are going to need this thing, Hashem is going to make it come our way. Hashem is going to take care of it. I'm going to be able to buy it for myself again. Someone will give it to me again. Like when I need it, it's going to happen. I don't have to hold on to everything because I might, and someday it might, because I end up with a very heavy burden on myself when I do that. Okay. For us to be on a high, so when we came out of Egypt, as we said, it was the spring of all the nations. Why was it the spring of all the nations? It's because we as a people and as individuals are beholden to a higher level of morality of what people had. Now, how does that happen in our regular life? How do we get to this higher level in our life, right? Where everyone is not watching us and the world is not watching us, that our immediate family is with us and our community is around us. And what does that mean, coming to a higher level of morality in my day-to-day life? So one is, I will not blame anyone, right? I will not blame anyone. And also, I will not blame myself. That's a level of living, not blaming myself and not blaming anyone for anything. I will not talk about anyone and not expect anyone to meet my needs, but I'll meet my own needs, right? And I want to be able to also, not only am I not going to blame anyone and not talk about anyone, I don't want to talk about anyone in my head, right? I don't want to talk about anyone in my head as well. Just like, so I want to be able, my head is a very precious real estate area, my brain, very, very precious. And what I would like to have in my head is realizations of where I still would like to grow, realizations of who I am and how I function in this world. I don't want to use up the real estate in my head of what did he do and how did he not do, and did he come to my farach and he didn't? Did he come in late? Was I invited? Was I not invited? Did she do this? Did she do that? When we think about other people in our heads, it's like having a house on Central Park and just opening it up for all the homelesses to come and just sleep in it or something. Like it's giving away, parceling away real estate and just throwing it in the garbage. If we allow in our heads thoughts about other people. So part of reaching this higher moral situation, this high moral level in our life, is following Moshe's suit, right? Moshe's was, in one direction. This is a way that we can do it in our life. Not to talk about others, not to think about others, to be able to meet my own needs, not to expect anything from anyone. And these are ways that we want to come to the Seder. We don't want to come feeling victimized, feeling like, they didn't help, they didn't ask, they didn't this, they didn't that. Nothing like that. I want to know what I want to do for the Seder. I want to know what my ratzon is for the Seder. I want to know how I'm going to bring my light to the Seder, and leave it at that. And leave it at that. when we were born as a nation, and we came out of Mitzraim, I feel like in the desert, there were many layers that needed to get discovered in Am Yisrael. Like Am Yisrael needed to discover themselves because for so many years, they were under someone else's rule and they were going by someone else's, rules, right? And they didn't have much time, as Pharaoh was saying, if they're able to talk about freedom, it means that they're not working too hard. And he put more things on them in order for them to, work harder. And they needed to unfold and discover who they are in the desert. Now, also we as people, there are different levels of us as women. And when we started this class, right, I feel like before I started learning this kind of Torah, there are different levels of being in this world. The lowest level is a domem. The lowest level is an inanimate object. But what does it mean for me being an inanimate object? It means that I'm a living dead. I was alive and functioning, but internally, difficult situations moved me, stressed me, depressed me. I felt deadened inside, right? I felt deadened inside. That's a domem. That's an inanimate still life. I didn't know how to talk. I didn't know how to think. I didn't know how to, I would also say we didn't know how to connect in a way that benefits the people around us. And we didn't know how to talk about ourselves. Domem is like someone who can't even talk. We didn't know how to talk about ourselves so that people will really be able to hear us, will really be able to hear who we are, right? We would criticize. Instead of criticizing at this point, like, let's say, instead of criticizing, like when I walk in and I saw a sink filled with dishes after I was gone for a full day and I left the sink very clean. So I would being a domem is looking at the sink and thinking, or even saying, forget thinking, I would be saying, no one cares about the house. No one takes responsibility. I cleaned it. I expect to have it cleaned back, blah, 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 on and on and on, criticizing them. And also criticizing myself, like, how did I raise these children? They're not doing what they should do, et cetera, et cetera. That is living a domem kind of life. And the level that we went up from domem, from being like an inanimate person that doesn't know how to talk, is my ability to come in and see the sink and either, which is a higher level, not even have anything course through my head when I see the sink, or all the toys on the floor, whatever. Or a lower level would be, thank God there's life in this house. Thank God we have food in our refrigerator, so these dishes could be dirty and they're in my sink, right? We could thank God for it. And the next level is not even have anything go through my head. The only thing that would go through my head, what would you like to do about it now? Do you want to put 5 minutes into doing the dishes? Like, what? And do that and go and finish with the criticism, the drama, the talking in our heads about others. Okay, so that was one level of domem, which I think that we're all pretty much out of that level. And there's another level of a tzomeach. Tzomeach is grow. A domem, we'd say, is like a pencil. A tzomeach is like a flower, right? Tzomeach is something that grows. And what is a growing person? And this is very connected to Pesach, because when we came out of Mitzraim, the people realized that they're in a growth process, right? Before they were just domem, they were inanimate, treated as inanimate objects. The rabbi said that they would put a baby instead of a brick, kind of a thing. The babies were thrown into the Ye'od as if they were garbage. They were at that level. And going out of Mitzrayim means, and it's beautiful that it says that the going out of Mitzrayim was the spring of the world. The spring of the world is where we all grow and blossom, and there, all of a sudden, after the winter and the trees seem like they're dead, we see life. We see life coming to these trees, everything is blossoming, the leaves are bursting, and it wasn't something that we thought that was dead. So what does it mean, us growing as a person? Us growing as people means that we have awareness of why we were brought into this world. And we realize that we came into this world to grow and to lift ourselves to higher levels. Like a friend of mine came and told me that her sister-in-law stopped talking to her. And she goes to me, my sister-in-law stopped talking to me. I think that she deserves to be in a psychiatric unit. What do you mean? Stopping to talk to me? There's no reason for that. I don't even know what she wants from my life, et cetera, et cetera. This person doesn't realize that really everything that's happening is within her. And what needs to be changed is things within her. And God brought her sister-in-law to her at that moment of time, telling her, you're at a level that doesn't befit you anymore. And you need to expand, you need to evolve, there's a growth process that you need to go through. So being a person who is in a growth process, which is a minimal level in order to live here, right? It's a minimal level in order to live here, is that when someone or something comes across, we're not angry with them. We're not triggered by them. We're not stressed by them. We realize that they're here so I can meet myself. So why should I talk about the other person? Because if I talk about someone else, I will never be able to learn anything about me. In these classes, like Michal parents, when people come forward and they say, I want to do an avodah about so-and-so. Something happened to me, something triggered me, my sister-in-law stopped talking to me. The first question she asks, what does that teach you about yourself? What does it teach you about yourself? It teaches me that I want to fix those around me. People say, I feel like if only I would send my child to therapy, everything is going to be okay. But no, it's not about sending my child to therapy. Let him go to therapy, finish, let them take, care of my child, and let them fix, as if we're sending a car to be fixed. No, if we fix ourselves, we don't have to send our children to therapy. If we fix ourselves, we don't have to think anything bad or or criticize anyone around us. And that, as a nation, when we come out of Mitzraim, is coming to a level of a growth of an individual who's in the growth process. On Pesach, we are dealing with Pharaoh, and Pharaoh is the opposite of being Jewish, because Pharaoh's identity card is the desire to control. He wanted to control, right? And that was his status, and that is like the lowest rung in on the moral ladder. So I would like to relinquish control this Pesach, and I'm ending the class now. I would like to relinquish control, and I'm saying the avodah that I would like to do. Many Passovers, I created beautiful seders that people really enjoyed themselves, and I would always go to bed feeling empty and miserable. I would go feeling empty and miserable. Why was that? Because I had very high expectations, because I was trying to cram into the seder, cram into my child's small bag, a week's worth of clothing. And that created a lot of pressure. It creates pressure on the bag, and the bag eventually bursts. And I want to come into the seder relinquishing all expectations. I want to come with one word of Torah, with one or two, whatever I think is realistic to the table, and being able to come to the Seder with it and know that if this thing will happen, that is Dayenu. That is sufficient. I think Dayenu needs to be our motto. When I disconnect, when my body disconnects from my mind, my mind starts running into how I want it to look and how I want it to be. Someone just told me, and I'm really ending with this, but someone just told me that she has a small house and she wants to have a large Seder, and she's totally miserable because the house can't contain the amount of people she really wants to have. and and she was asking me, like, how are you doing it? How are you doing it? You have a house smaller than mine. You're having more people than me, and you don't look like you're stressed about it. And when I started to talk about her with her, it ended up that she wants everyone to have a perfect place setting, and only then she could really have everyone, and only then she could really be happy. So over here, it's a matter of control of the situation that she would like her Seder to look like. She wants everything to be perfect. Wanting everything to be perfect is a Pharaoh, is trying to be in control. But now, if everyone is not going to have the perfect place setting and is not going to have the most comfortable chair, and some people are going to sit around the couch, and some people are going to sit around the table. 1 minute. Someone here is.
Who's not?
Second.
Why?
Okay. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Oh. Okay, sorry guys. Someone went off mute. What was I saying? Oh, okay. Her relinquishing control is relinquishing the desire for perfection. Once that desire for perfection is relinquished, she would be able to have many more people. So my Yetziat Mitzraim is going to be not having expectations, being able to see what kind of light I want to bring to the table, and being able to relinquish that control for things to be perfect or to be my way or to be exactly, the way I want it to be. Those are my Yetziat Mitzrayim. Not having expectations, relinquishing control, lowering standards, knowing that Pesach is about growth and not about control. I want to let the Pharaoh out of me this Pesach. So we're here to grow to higher levels of humanity, and we want to become women who do not grade ourselves. Like this other young woman that was saying, she wants to have a lot of people, but everything needs to be perfect. If everything is not perfect, then she's very disappointed with herself. Guys, okay, etc. Okay, and so me as a woman, I'd want to stop grading and criticizing myself, and I want to know that once I do that, that is a way for me to grow. And how do I do that? I take the criticism and the grades that I give myself. I'm more than this, I'm less than this, she did more than me, I did less than that. I want to wrap it up and throw it in the garbage. It's unnecessary. Just like we're getting rid of the unnecessary chametz, this is something that's unnecessary in my life. It's not mat'im. This talk doesn't do good for me. It's not mat'im. It doesn't respect me. Just like taking drugs and alcohol does not respect me. Grading myself, criticizing myself, judging myself, weighing myself, between me and other people, looking at other people and grading myself. Also, those things are not respectful of myself. And the 3 things we need to do in order to get rid of it is deciding that we're not going to use it any longer. We will not criticize ourselves. This is like a first step, but not criticizing others. We're not going to criticize ourselves. We're not going to talk any kind of negative things about ourselves. We're not going to measure ourselves and grade ourselves, right? We're going to decide we're not doing it any longer. The second thing is we're going to put it in the garbage. We're going to take out, it's extraneous. It doesn't serve us any longer. And the third thing we're going to do, we're going to pray to Hashem to help us on this. And those are the 3 ways for us to help us grow and become women who will reach higher levels of humanity, which is what Hashem wanted us to do when we went out of Mitzrayim, to evolve to higher levels of being. to depart from Pharaoh, to depart from the control, and to be able to relinquish it to him, and to be able to be a full living being where in everything we do, our head will be there, our body will be there, and we will go from one thing to the next with a lot of aliveness. And this is my blessing for us this Pesach, Be'ezrat Hashem. And thank you all for being here. I'm going to